Dan, you are now live.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the March 24th, 2021 meeting of the East Lansing Planning Commission. Mr. Haywood, would you please call roll?
Thank you. Bowman.
Present and attending remotely from East Lansing, Michigan.
Thank you. Boyle.
Present attending remotely from East Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan.
Thank you. Cahill. You're
Okay.
muted.
Sorry, I'm present and attending from East Lansing, Michigan remotely.
Hendricks. Lapine.
Present and attending remotely from East Lansing, Michigan.
Sullivan.
Present, attending remotely from my home in East Lansing, Michigan.
Wagner.
Present and attending remotely from my house in East Lansing, Michigan.
Williams.
I'm present and attending remotely from my home in East Lansing.
And Wolf.
Here attending remotely from East Lansing, Michigan.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Once again, I'll thank everyone for their patience as we continue to deal with this not quite so new technology, but still requires a certain amount of patience, including removing unnecessary filters. All members of the public will have an opportunity to address the commission during public comment and again, during the public hearing portion of each of our public hearings. Each commission member will be called upon individually to speak during each item. A commission member may say pass if they do not have a comment for that item. Commission members are reminded to state their name before speaking or making a motion, etc. And all votes of consequence will be taken with a roll call vote. That said, you have a copy of the agenda of the March 10th meeting in your packet. I will entertain a motion to approve that agenda. For this agenda. Well, let me try that again. I'll do this the right way. Thank you. There was an uncanny silence. Let's try it again. You have a copy of tonight's agenda in your packet. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
I move to
Wolf, so
approve the
moved.
agenda. Cahill.
That's been moved by Commissioner Wolf and seconded by Commissioner Cahill. Any discussion on that motion? All right, let's have a voice vote here. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Item 1.3, the approval of the minutes of the March 10th, 2021 meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes as presented.
Wolf, so moved.
Wagner, second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Wolf and seconded by Commissioner Wagner to approve the minutes of the March 10th meeting. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, seeing none, then we'll call for a vote. Again, let's do a voice vote here. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And those opposed? That motion carries. Moving us on to item 2, committee reports, for which we have none. Then item 3, staff reports. Mr. Haywood, your swan song.
No report tonight. Thank you.
Well, very silent swan song. Item 4, commissioner announcements. Do any commissioners have anything they wish to announce? Commissioner Cahill.
Yeah, I'd like to announce that as of next week, I'll be fully vaccinated and heading for the barber shop. And there's no point competing with Dave anymore, so.
Just a moment, please. I'm getting a message in the chat from one of the applicants who's having some difficulty signing in. I don't know how to, I've just let them know that we're looking into it, but that's the extent of my ability to assist in that. If Mr. Parcell or Ms. Ordalis could give us a hand.
Is it Doug Scott?
It is not Doug Scott. It is Jeremy Matthews from Cabrio Properties.
He's logged in. According to this, he's an attendee.
All right. Mr. Matthews, I'm going to presume you heard that you are currently an attendee. You're not likely to show up on the screen as a panelist, but you will be invited to speak momentarily, and then again when your project is on the agenda before us. Any other commissioner announcements? All right, then that'll move us on to item 5, communications from citizens. This is the time in our meeting when we invite members of the public to come forward and make comments on any items that are on our agenda or may not be on our agenda. We generally ask that if you have a comment to make on any one of our public hearings this evening, that you hold those comments until that item is on the agenda or comes up on the agenda. But you're certainly welcome to make comments at any time you like. However, each caller in our queue will have 5 minutes to address the commission. At the end of 5 minutes, you will be placed back on mute. Callers will be identified and asked to speak based on the last 3 digits of their phone number. When called upon, you will be unmuted. If you do not wish to speak at that time, please indicate so by saying pass. If you do wish to speak, please clearly state your name and your address before addressing the commission. This is not a requirement for making comments, but it does help our recording secretary keep accurate minutes of this meeting. That said, it looks like we have a number of people that are attending. Mr. Parcell, will you please invite our attendees to speak?
I will. So as Chair Bowman said, I will say the last 3 digits of your phone number or your initials. If you are here with an application, if you could just please let me know what one will allow you to come in and speak as an applicant. And I'm going to do my best to write down who's with what application so I can kind of keep track of that since there are so many people here. But without further ado, caller with the last 3 digits, 368. The floor is yours. You are muted. Caller 368.
Is it *6 on their phone?
*6, yeah.
Yep. If you caller 368, if you want to unmute, that's *6 on your phone.
Caller 368. Thank you. Caller with the last 3 digits, 240. The floor is yours.
Hi, pass. I'm here to speak on the public hearing 6.1.
Thank you very much. Chair Bowman, just for clarification, it's 2 minutes, correct?
I believe it's 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. It's hard to start and stop the stopwatch as I go through here.
That's fine.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 265. The floor is yours. Caller 265. Caller 265.
Good evening, Mr. Haywood.
Mr. Haywood is here in attendance, but you're addressing the Planning Commission?
Thank you, sir. This is Deborah Stewart. I was calling to speak briefly in regard to the Avenue form-based code effects on the 600 block of Grove regarding single-family residence historic homes. I didn't know if you prefer I wait till the end of the meeting and call back, or if you prefer us to speak at this time.
You're welcome to speak at this time. That item is later on our agenda. And I think Ms. Schmidt either give me a nod or a shake. We were planning on taking comments later in the meeting on that. So Ms. Stewart, I'll leave that up to you. If you'd like to stick around for the meeting, feel free. If you'd like to make those comments now, we'd certainly be happy to hear them.
Thank you. I'll just speak very briefly as I did have trouble getting into the Zoom meeting in order to follow through this evening. I am a 60-year family resident and current property owner of a single-family historic home in the 600 block of Grove. I was very concerned about the boundaries that are being identified for the form-based code. And I did want to begin by saying I do appreciate the hard work of each of the Planning Commission and the staff of East Lansing. My father, Roger Henry Stewart, voluntarily served in the City of East Lansing Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals for over 10 years during his lifetime. And we do know that it requires a great deal of time and dedication. So I should have started by complimenting your commission and thanking you. I did want to note, though, that I know Dad would have been concerned about a number of the aspects and how it will affect family neighborhoods. I think he may have proposed that there be either two standards, one for the East Lansing downtown area and another standard for the College Grove Historic District, or consideration as my neighbor and Professor Mrozowski had recommended within his notes, stopping at the Linden Street area. Simply because I didn't know if the commission was aware, as in the 600 block, there are 12 homes, and 9 of those are owned by single family residents with families and children. I am concerned that the historic home district and zoning, which was put into place initially for a reason years ago, is maintained in order to keep the history of the neighborhood. That was my main concern this evening in terms of the boundaries that are being identified for the code.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. I should also note that I believe we received a letter from you maybe a month or so ago with the same concerns.
Yes.
Okay. All right,
Thank you.
Yep,
Yes,
absolutely.
I did make a letter from the family, and I believe it was initially page 115 in your packet. I know you have a lot of material to go through, and this evening it's on page 38 of your packet.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Not at this time, just that I do hope to follow through with seeing your recommendations, and hope that you'll consider keeping the zoning and building concerns affecting the historic family home properties honored.
Thank you.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 227. The floor is yours. You are muted. Reminder, *6 is how you unmute via phone, and otherwise you can use the unmute button on your screen.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Let me walk away. All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey, this is Jeremy Matthews with Cabrillo Properties. We are calling in regards to a application we submitted for a special use permit.
And what's the address for that one, just so I have it?
128 Collingwood.
Okay, perfect. I will mark that right now, and I will pull you back in when your application is up. Glad to see you got into the meeting.
Thank you.
All right, caller with the last 3 digits, 522. The floor is yours. Caller 522. It is *6 to unmute. Caller 522. Okay. Caller with the last 3 digits, 525. The floor is yours.
Yes, this is Rich and Joy Shaberg, and we're here to speak about the proposal on 128 Collingwood also.
Hi, this is Joy.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Joy.
Yeah, we're here to speak on the proposal, the 128 Collingwood. Shall we just wait until that comes up?
Yeah. Yep, that's fine. There will be a public hearing for that one.
Okay,
and
yep.
a few items. Yep. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And caller with the last 3 digits, 963. The floor is yours.
Hi, this is Alice Drager from 621 Sunset Lane. I had questions that I had sent staff a while back and didn't get answers, so I thought I would just ask again regarding two things on the agenda. One is with regard to 128 Collingwood. When I went by that house, it seems pretty clear it's already a fraternity. The letters are already up. The frat brothers told me they were already living there as a frat. They were outside. So I'm mostly curious about how SUPs work for these things. Is it like the way we've treated stores that have started selling alcohol before they have an SUP? Is the attitude just, we don't worry about it if there's an application in? So I'm just trying to understand how that works and hoping staff can speak to that question when they get to this issue. And secondly, on the form-based code, two questions. One was whether or not there are any properties in the Avenue Form District that are conforming if this were to pass as it's been designed. I'm trying to find some examples of properties that we could show people that would fit the design that the Planning Commission has chosen for this area. And I'm honestly not expert enough in the code to be able to find them myself. So I would appreciate if we could point out which properties would be conforming or not conforming. I'm not suggesting that staff go over every property, although I think in some ways it might be very easy because it seems to me most of them are not going to conform. So it might be relatively easy to find the ones that do conform. And I think it would be helpful so we could show people those examples. When East Village happened, I believe there were no conforming properties. So it was not possible there to show people what would conform. But I think in this case, there probably would be some. And secondly, I didn't understand the response in the packet to the question of what happens in historic districts. And I spoke to my spouse who's on the Historic District Commission, that's Aaron Souza, and went over it with him. And he and I both have the same impression, which is that the Planning Commission and the Council could pass this, but the Historic District Commission could decide that they don't like the design that you all have chosen. And so they could reject it. So that means that if somebody were to come forward with a property, say a landlord, and they wanted to demolish it and do some of the townhouse designs, for example, I believe the Historic District Commission could simply reject it because it doesn't fit the standards that the Historic District is using. And so it seems to me creates a clash between the historic districts and the Avenue Form District. And so I'm really confused about how that would work. Additionally, if there was a homeowner and they wanted to add, say, 25% to their property, which I believe my spouse and I have done with our historic home because we've added a garage and added other things, they would then be non-conforming. And so they would have to, I guess, knock down their house and move it to the build to line. And so that strikes me as strange also for historic district houses. So we have had a historic district house since 1998, and we've done the changes to our house within the requirements of the Historic District Commission. And I think in this case, although we are not in the Avenue Form District, if our house were in a historic district and in the Avenue Form District, we would have had to, I believe, knock down our house if we wanted to make the changes that we've made. So but then the Historic District could have rejected what we would rebuild. So I'm really confused about how that works in terms of the historic district. So that's very confusing to me. Those are my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Caller with the initials CC. The floor is yours.
Hi, yes, Cal Cornwell here with Crit and Break Architecture, and I'm here to address item 6.1.
Thank you, Mr. Cornwell. Caller with the initials CK. The floor is yours.
Courtney Clean, Consumers Energy. I'm here to discuss our essential services application.
Thank you very much, Ms. Colleen. Caller with the initials DS, as in Sam, the floor is yours.
Daryl Slamiani, I'm here for the graduate item on the agenda.
Yes. Thank you very much. Caller with the initials DS, the other one. Sorry, I didn't notice that at first. DSC, floor is yours. You are muted.
Yeah, this is Doug Scott from Rowe Professional Services Company. I'm here to represent Consumers Energy as well with Ms. Colleen.
Okay, thank you. Caller with the initials JH, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jan Hayek. I'm here for item 7.1, 133 Evergreen Ave.
Okay. Thank you very much. Caller with the initials JM, and then the next letter is A. JMA. Floor is yours. I think we already had this person on as a caller. So I will move on past that. Caller with the initials JMO. Floor is yours.
Hi, this is Jessica Mori from the Skeen Law Firm. I'm here on behalf of Collegiate Catering East Lansing LLC for item 7.1.
Thank you very much. Caller with the initials JMI. Floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. This is Josh Mincer, also representing Collegiate Catering East Lansing for item 7.1.
Thank you very much, sir. Caller with the initials KP. The floor is yours.
Hi, this is Caleb Potter with Cabrio Properties for public hearing 6.2.
Okay. Caller with the initials LM. The floor is yours. LM, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you if you're saying anything. And LM. Caller with the initials MH. The floor is yours. MH.
Sorry, good evening. This is Martin Hanson with Graduate Hotels, also for Collegiate Catering East, item 7.1.
Okay. Caller with the initials MS as in Sam. The floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Salo. I'm with Alpha Sigma Phi Fraternity for item 6.2 on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you. And caller with the initials RS as in Sam. Floor is yours.
Actually, I'm on the phone too, so I mentioned I'm speaking on the one about the Collingwood proposal.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, Chair Bowman, that is it.
Thank you. I would also note that we received several items of written communication, but they were all associated with items that are on the agenda as well. Nothing was but for the stuff that was in the pack and Ms. Stewart's comments. Again, they're all sort of assembled in the packet today. Excuse me. So that'll move us on to item 6, a public hearing. Excuse me. This is item 6.1. This is a consideration of a request for site plan and special use permit approval from Pi Beta Phi FHC Michigan Gamma LLC for the property at 343 Harrison Road to move the existing dumpster approximately 9 feet closer to Huntington Road. And I believe Mr. Parcell, is this yours?
Yes, it is. Hello, everyone. This application is for what is an existing Class B multifamily residential use, which includes fraternities and sororities. So the sorority has been existing on site, the Pi Beta Phi. They were seeking a site plan change to move the dumpster, which requires the site plan approval to move it closer to the road. However, we realized when going through the application that as the sorority, they did not have a special use permit. They were grandfathered in. So we recommended in the same application to go through one entire application for a site plan and a special use permit. So the application is for moving the dumpster that's on site. The photos and the site plan are attached. And then also to provide, I wouldn't say legitimacy, but to provide official paperwork documenting that it is a Class B multifamily use existing in the RM32 district. It's really all I have to say for it. I know we have some people to speak on it and the applicant is here, so I will pass it along there.
Are there any questions for Mr. Parcell before we move on to the applicant and the public? Commissioner Wolf?
I have a procedural question. Since they do not have a special use permit, we should be treating this, I believe, as a brand new special use permit with a full site plan review. And it seems though there's some things missing from the staff report in that type of a context. For example, there's no full zoning analysis of the setbacks, and there's probably some other things missing as well. The staff report seems more like a site plan and special use permit modification.
Yeah, my apologies there. I neglected to put that in since the only thing that was being moved is the dumpster and the site plan was shown there, but everything else is staying as is on the entire site. So,
but do we even know if they have an approved site plan and when it's from? And we know they don't have a special use permit, and things may have changed in our ordinances since they established this use. That's why
we didn't find anything when we worked through this with Mr. Cornwell earlier in later last year. But it really is less of a site plan special use permit, I guess, for the structure. It's just because it's the sorority use, which is the Class B multifamily use. And in this district that requires the special use permit. So it's akin to like a liquor license. It's just the existing multifamily house, and then the use going in it is what is triggering the special use permit.
All right, I guess I'm not 100% convinced of that. It seems to me as though we should be doing the thorough review of it rather than this just treating it as a modification. But all right, thank you.
I saw Commissioner Cahill's hand and then Vice Chair Boyle.
Yeah, I have quite a few questions, but to stay on Chris's question there, the ordinance requires that no dumpster shall be located in a front yard or any yard bordering a street without approval of a site plan. So is the current location of this, we're saying there is no site plan for this property?
We didn't have anything, no. The dumpster was already existing there, and when they came to us seeking what we would have to do to move the dumpster, it kind of opened the whole process that we are in right now. So the dumpster was right there where it was, and to their knowledge is where it always has been. They came seeking to move it closer to the road as shown in the plans. And then when we went through and saw in the code that it does require a site plan to move the dumpster in the front yard, it moved us down the path of going through the site plan. And then we found that there was no special use permit because it was grandfathered in as the sorority use. And the city attorney recommended that they go through with the special use permit at the same time.
Okay. I guess I might as well go through the other questions I have now. So we're not talking about this being grandfathered in because there is no original approval that we're aware of for this.
It was a Class B multifamily use in terms of, or operating without a special use permit because it was operating prior to when special use permits were required for this sorority use in this district.
Yeah, but for a dumpster to be in a yard on a street, which this clearly is, you have to have, it can only exist there if there's an approved site plan.
Mr. Haywood, please.
Maybe I have a comment. I don't know if Boyle got a chance to speak up.
Vice Chair Boyle, it sounds to me like Mr. Haywood has wanted to answer the question at hand. Did you have something to add to that specifically?
Well, I guess my question was, since there isn't a special use permit here, we've become aware that it needed a special use permit. It pre-existed the need for a special use permit. So are we to grandfather it in as it exists now, no matter how far afield it might be of what the zoning code would require?
Yeah, that's pretty much the idea here. This is one of those really awkward situations where we have a legal non-conforming use and this, I guess, relatively small issue. Some people, of course, might object to the location of the dumpster, but it's not far from where it is now. But it's awkward in the sense that you have a pre-existing use that was essentially grandfathered in, right? The use and the site. So this effort is addressing the very narrow situation that's at play here, the location of the dumpster. And by approving the site plan, and I guess you could, if you were interested in approving it, narrowly approve it that the site plan is really only approved for the location of the dumpster. But it's challenging, and we had this internal discussion about how challenging the situation is, because if we do open the door to the entire site plan review, they may be subject to significant variances or other issues that they have really no control over, and really nor do we. So we felt, and we've dealt with this, I think, the same in similar cases in the past, that you address really the narrow issue before you and are silent on the rest of it. And we tried to do some research on this and found that there's no case law on this, really. There's no absolute in terms of community to community about how you address this. You really, I mean, you could do it at either end of the spectrum. You could throw the book at every single detail and force them through every process that would trigger, or you narrowly approve what they're requesting. The farthest we went, we said, well, the use really needs to have a special use permit. So you evaluate the use to make sure that at least the use is compliant for the district and that kind of thing, and get that on the record. But the rest of it, we stay silent to, with the exception of the dumpster or the trash receptacle.
Commissioner Cahill sounded like he had several things. Before I go back to you, I saw a couple other hands.
Yeah, if someone else would like to speak, that's
Vice
fine.
Chair, please.
I'll come back with my other.
Thank you, Commissioner Cahill. Vice Chair Boyle.
So if we approve a special use permit or recommend approval of special use permit, we're not approving it tonight, have they then been approved for the entire building and property as it exists now, no matter how non-conforming it might be? Or are we just approving or disapproving the move of the dumpster?
Well, in this particular instance, you would be approving a special use permit for the use and then a site plan for the dumpster specifically. And then let the non-conformity be the non-conformity.
Commissioner Wolf, I thought I saw your hand as well. Yes, and then back to Commissioner Cahill. Go ahead, please, Commissioner Wolf.
Yes, I had exactly the same question, but the way I read the current staff report, if we approve this, we would be doing what Vice Chair Boyle suggested. That the way it's written, it reads to me as though we are approving the entire site plan and the entire special use permit, which I'm really not very comfortable with. If we can make sure that the wording in this is clear, that we are approving the use as a let me think. It's not actually, sorority doesn't enter into it because that's not part of our ordinance. We would be approving the Class B multifamily use with the special use permit, and we would be approving the site plan for the location of the dumpster.
Mr. Haywood, sorry.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
The recommended motion is to approve special use permit and site plan approval to move the dumpster approximately 9 feet. I mean, it's written for that purpose. You could, I mean, if you wanted to clarify that further, you could, but I think the purpose is pretty clear that that's the reason for the site plan.
Commissioner Kale, if you wanted to proceed.
Okay. Why is this being moved 9 feet to begin with?
That's I have that as a question for the applicant as well. It's a fair question.
We don't know. We're waiting for the applicant.
The applicant is here.
Okay.
Would you like me to bring them in?
Not yet.
Yep.
I'd like to complete the commission's review first, please.
Yep, no problem.
Thanks.
As to the dumpster, the problem I'm having is that the existing dumpster appears to be illegal under our ordinances, which say that you cannot have one in any yard bordering a street without approval of a site plan. And apparently we have no site plan. Then our ordinance requires that all dumpsters shall be screened on all sides. This one clearly is not. That's why you have that horrific looking site as you turn down Huntington Street. And I can understand why the neighbors are upset about that. Dumpsters are subject to setback standards for accessory structures in the district. I don't think the staff report addressed the setback standards. And this would be bringing it right up to the sidewalk, I believe, the way it looks. There's also a requirement that adequate containers or compactors shall be provided on the site to collect and store trash or other waste materials and recyclable materials. Unless I didn't see it, there's no provision for recyclable materials right now on site. Maybe it's hidden somewhere on that site that I couldn't see. And containers or compactors shall be effectively screened to obscure them from view. Clearly, the existing structure does not do that. You just look right at the dumpster as you drive down Huntington into the neighborhood. And it's to also supposed to prohibit materials from blowing away to control access. The current structure certainly does not do that. It's wide open right into the dumpster. And finally, the ordinance requires that it shall also be located as inconspicuously as possible on the site. This is the most conspicuous location for a dumpster, pretty much that you could have on the site, at least on the Huntington Street side. So I have all these issues with it. And I wonder, how are they existing now with apparently no recycling bin and no gate on the enclosure that's currently provided? So I have a lot of issues, and beginning with, if there's no site plan, there's no authority for a dumpster to be there, period. So those are my concerns.
Thank you. Commissioner Wagner?
I just have a minor question. In the application on page 32, there's a picture And I want to know if that's of the dumpster. It looks like it's behind a fence, but it conflicts with what I've seen from questions submitted by other people, and I don't know if that's a proposed dumpster or that's what actually
that's the
currently
case.
is.
I believe that that's the case, that's the door that's intended to be put on the.
Because it doesn't look like from the other picture, for example, there's a big tree behind the dumpster, and this one doesn't.
Correct.
And it's on a cement block. So this is what is proposed.
An example door, perhaps.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Wolf.
I just had an answer, what I think is the answer to one of Commissioner Cahill's concerns. The way I see it, the existing dumpster without the site plan is grandfathered there because as far as we know, it was placed there before that requirement was in effect. So it would be considered legally non-conforming in its current location. When we, if we consider this request to move it, then we have to consider the legality or conformity of it with our current regulations and ensure that it is in conformity.
Mr. Parcell?
Yeah, Commissioner Wolf, you nailed it right there. That's exactly it. Like many other things that exist in the city prior to the code, it was there. As far as I understand from the applicant, it's the original location of where the dumpster was here, and that's why it's existing in its location currently. And to Commissioner Wagner and backing up Chair Bowman, page 32 is the proposed screening. There is, this builds off of Commissioner Cahill's point about properly screening the dumpster. There is, I think, 3 walls up currently, and they're proposing to put the gate in front. And then our code states that a 6-foot high fence surrounding the dumpster counts as the enclosure. So that's the planned enclosure, just a showing of what the gate will be completed as.
I might also be noted that, I mean, we're about to bring the applicant forward, but that it seems to me that this is the placement, like it or not, whether it should be there or not, was probably deliberate in that it actually sits on a raised, like about 4-foot slight, sort of, I'll call it a pedestal. That's probably a bit too grand a term, but there's a thickened slab on which that dumpster sits. And so that it probably was intended to be placed there. Again, whether we have record of when that occurred or whether that was appropriate or not, it seems to me that it's where it was intended to be. Any remaining questions or comments for staff? All right, Mr. Parcell, if you would bring, the person's initials are CC. I'll see if I can't find them.
His name is Mr. Cornwell. He is now in the chat and he is unmuted. There you go.
Mr. Cornwell, good or welcome. If you'd like to add anything to Commissioner or to Mr. Parcell's presentation, feel free. And then if you'd be willing to take some questions from the commission, you've heard the discussion, but take some questions from us as well.
Yes, thank you. My name is Kel Cornwell, and I'm with Crit and Brink Architecture. And this, I think Jake and I have been going back and forth with some communication on this, and I think he presented everything that we've talked about as of this far correctly. The main point with this is, if you can see on the photo submitted on page 13, that the residents do park on that other side of the dumpster. So one of the main, and that is not like a striped space. So the main concern would be for residents' safety and for ease of the sanitation to get the trash and everything out. So the moving the dumpster closer would eliminate some safety concerns that we have with that. And also they would be able to park on the other side of the dumpster. So making it easier for the residents and easier for the trash collector and everything. And yes, that there is a dumpster pad there, and that would be moved if we were to get approval on that. But I think we have gone back and forth with Jake on the essentially what is needed with the site plan and the special use permit, which essentially brings us to here. But our main goal is obviously, as you guys have talked about, is just to move that 9 feet.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Or actually, Commissioner Cahill, since you had a number of them, why don't we start with you?
The first question is why would it be moved 9 feet?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Why do you want to move it 9 feet?
So that we can eliminate the residents parking on the other side of the dumpster, which creates a safety situation. And then so that we can gain a parking spot, like an actual striped parking spot, instead of them parking on that empty space on the I guess the south side of the dumpster. If you look at the page 13, you'll see a car parked in that spot where we would like to get the dumpster closer and make this safer for the residences.
Actually, I'd like to tack on to that, if I may, Commissioner Cahill. Mr. Cornwell, I'm curious, appreciating where the dumpster is now. I'm looking at your site plan in A101. There are a couple of parking spaces that are adjacent to the building, but are still in line with the driveway. That would, if they were moved to that location, it would open up the parking space that you're talking about, and also remove the dumpster to a place that's further away from the street. I presume there were barrier-free spots, but I'm sort of looking, and it looks like there might be as many as 3 in that location, just to the south of the building. And I'm curious why, or would that potentially be a different location for the dumpster?
That is something we could bring up with the ownership. Their main concern right now is, going through you guys, of course, and seeing if we can move it to the proposed location to free up that spot and make it easier for everyone, essentially.
Thanks. Commissioner Cahill, if you wanted to continue.
Okay. The ordinance requires that dumpsters be put in the least conspicuous spot possible on the site, which in this case, as with the sorority or fraternity, I'm not sure what's next door, their dumpster is in the back of the parking area. Now I can see there are some issues there. There appears to be an exit door in the back of your parking lot. Is there a reason the dumpster can't be put back farther in the parking lot?
I think that with that one-way traffic and how those parking spots are located currently, I think that would create many more problems than it would solve from a design aspect on our side.
And can you explain what those problems would be?
I think the first one we would think would just be getting the trash truck all the way back with that one-way parking and having a dumpster back there. And you're correct, there is the exit door from the stairs is at that point, I believe, that you're talking about. So it would be there would probably be egress concerns that would come up, and then also with residents being able to leave and enter, and having the dumpster that close to the building with the fresh air, with the windows and everything. I believe that, I'm not saying that it would be impossible, but I believe it would create many more concerns than there are now.
Part of the ordinance requirements are that there be provision for recyclable collection also. I didn't see anything on the site now for that purpose. Does it exist somewhere on that?
Recycling is just the individual containers. It's that they bring out. It's not included with that in the dumpster enclosure.
So it's kept in the house and then brought out?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, I'm seeing no hands. And so, Mr. Cornwell, if you'd stick close, I'm going to open up the public hearing and give the public the opportunity to comment. I will reiterate that we did receive a couple of letters from neighbors regarding this particular proposal. And I think one of them was on the line 240, Mr. Parcell. So at this point, I'll open up the public hearing for this application and invite, I guess you're going to go through this list again. Invite members of the public to comment. I'll once again reiterate that if you don't have comment to make on this particular matter, please be prompt in letting us know by saying pass when you get the opportunity, when you're given the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
1 second. So yes, I will mute Mr. Cornwell. Mr. Cornwell, if you just stay muted till we're done with this, that way I don't have to come pull you back in. Alrighty. It looks like we've added and lost a couple people, so I'll do my best to cover everybody with my notes. If anyone in the public hearing was skipped for a reason, sometimes I shuffle around, please use your Zoom function to raise your hand, and I will try and double check as I go through. But caller with the last 3 digits, 368, the floor is yours. Caller 368. Third time. Caller 368. Thank you. Caller with the last 3 digits, 227. The floor is yours. Caller, oh, there you go.
I will pass, but I will elect to use my Zoom platform to speak from now on and not my actual phone number.
Yes,
so it's sir.
Yep, Mr. Matthews, got ya. Thank you so much. Caller with the last 3 digits, 240. The floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Diane Wing. I live at 1024 Huntington Road in the Chesterfield Hills Historic District. My email was part of the communication packet that commissioners received earlier in the communications from citizens. And it appears that at least one of the commissioners was referring to some of the photographs that I provided within my email communication. I was going to focus on a slightly different tack, but based on the comments from Commissioners Wolf and Cahill and Boyle, you folks seem to have the very same confusion that I had when I first started looking at this. In reading the application, it appeared to me that somehow the applicant was trying to approve everything about their use in the site plan, but then the only thing that is being talked about tonight is the position of the dumpster and moving the dumpster from its existing position 9 feet closer to Huntington Road. And I was struggling to figure out, well, wouldn't we have to approve its existing location first before we could then approve moving it 9 feet closer? So I went back and forth on that, and then I finally figured, okay, to heck with that. I'll just concentrate on the fact that they want to move it 9 feet closer to Huntington Road. It's an eyesore where it is right now. It is only enclosed in 3 sides, on 3 sides. I have never seen a door or a gate that encloses the existing dumpster where you literally cannot see the dumpster. It is always open, and it is always the very first thing you see when you turn onto Huntington Road from Harrison Road. It is unsightly. The idea to move this dumpster even closer to the sidewalk, while I understand why the applicant's asking, it does not fit. The dumpster doesn't fit today where it is. Commissioner Cahill's questions are, in my mind, spot on. His concerns are spot on. It's too close to the sidewalk today. Moving it 9 feet further forward doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Moving it 9 feet further forward means we get to see it more, and pedestrians get to enjoy the odor of the dumpster more. I don't understand how this could be even thought to be approved from just the streetscape aspect than when you add in the ordinance questions that Commissioner Cahill brought up. Also within the staff report, I was struck by the fact that the staff report focused only on the sorority as it exists, pushing as it fronts Harrison Road, and the fact that there are other sororities next to it. There's fraternities across the street on Harrison Road. But the rear part of the sorority and the dumpster is completely adjacent to the Chesterfield Hills Historic District, and to the south is the Collegeville Historic District. There are at least 6 single-family homes that either have a direct view of the enclosure today, or they have an adjacent view of it, that their home actually abuts to it. Again, pushing this dumpster 9 feet further forward simply is not compatible with a single-family residential street. There are absolutely no other uses on Huntington Road other than single-family owner-occupied homes. And we're talking about allowing a dumpster to sit out 24 hours a day in a residential neighborhood. Whether it's enclosed or not, that's not appropriate. So I provided 4 photographs which were taken so that the commission can understand or at least appreciate what the residents look at on a regular basis with the way this dumpster is positioned today. You can see in the second photograph that I sent in my email, there was loose trash in some white and black bags that was just laying beside the enclosure. That trash laid out for at least 10 days between the time of my initial photographs, which were the ones that are sort of in an overcast look, and then the second photographs that I took 10 days later, which were on a sunnier day. If you look at the third photograph that I sent, it's sort of a rear view of the enclosure. You can see sort of poking out behind that large tree.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. Between the tree and the enclosure, that to my knowledge is a City of East Lansing recycling cart. And so that is the recycling that Commissioner Cahill brought up, and it's not, I mean, it's not enclosed and it's not anywhere near the sorority. So in conclusion, I request that you deny this application. I was then going to ask, if you don't deny the application, that you require the applicant to completely enclose this structure. I'm sorry, if you do deny the application, then they should be required to completely enclose the dumpster as it exists today. They should not be able to be allowed to keep the dumpster with one side of it open and continually facing Huntington Road. Thank you.
That is your time. Perfect ending.
Thank you,
Right on 5 minutes. Caller with the last 3 digits, 265. The floor is yours. Caller with the last 3 digits, 265. You're muted. Reminder, *6 is how you unmute on a calling phone.
Thank you. I've already spoken concerning the form-based code effects. Thank you.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 522. The floor is yours.
Pass. Yes, I'd like to pass, but I wanted the commission to know that that dumpster has been there for back in the 50s. I went to school here in the 80s, and that dumpster has been there several years before my time. So that is all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Caller with the last 3 digits, 525. The floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the last 3 digits, 963. The floor is yours.
Just wondering, given the discussion, whether or not the city attorney was consulted on what's required of this. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Caller with the last three digits, 889. The floor is yours.
I pass.
Thank you.
Jake, I just excuse me, but I saw in the chat that caller 889 would like to speak on item 7.1 if you were keeping notes.
Yep, I have them down as an applicant there. Thank you very much. As I go through everyone's initials, knowing that most of you are here for an application or representative, if you could please just say pass if you have nothing to comment on this application. I will say your initials and on the floor will be yours. Caller with the initials CK, the floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials DS, the floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials DSC, the floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials JH, the floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials JN, the floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials JMA, the floor is yours. I believe you actually have already heard from him.
Yes, pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials JMO, the floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials JMI, the floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials KP, the floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials LM. Oh, that's the same as dialer 889. Caller with the initials MH, the floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials MS, the floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials RS, the floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you very much. That concludes your public hearing, Chair Bowman.
Thank you. I'm going to just take this opportunity to reiterate my appreciation or thanks, patience. Were this an in-person meeting, we would be able to see who wanted to speak and you could immediately approach the podium. The method we use, though somewhat onerous, gives everybody the opportunity to speak whether they want to or not. And so again, those of you that are slightly later on the agenda, and we'll have to go through this a couple more times. The reason that we do that is to make sure that everybody gets the opportunity to speak on an item if they want to. So that said, I will close the public hearing for this matter and return it to the commission. It sounds to me like we've got some questions specifically for staff that will need to be addressed before proceeding with action on this item. Commissioner Cahill, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I wonder if the applicant can tell us when. We had one speaker say that she thought this has been there since the 50s, although she said she went to school in the 80s. I don't know if she lived in the city before that or not, but can the applicant or the staff tell us when this was actually built? And I guess I'm a little confused about historically, when were site plans first required?
I don't have a date of construction.
Any thoughts, Mr. Hayward, Mr. Parcell, Ms. Schmidt?
I have no date of construction, and I couldn't tell you when the site plan was required. Looks like Darcy shook her head as well.
It sounds to me like just a second, Mr. Hayward, this is likely to come back before us. I may be mistaken, but it sounds to me like at the very least, there were some questions that could be answered the next time we see this. Mr. Hayward.
So it looks like looking at our assessing data, looks like the building was built in 1955. Beyond that, I don't know when site plans were required. I know generally site plan requirements have been around for a long time. We've seen, documents back into the 70s and the 60s even here. So, but the 50s might be pushing it. I don't know if there was a site plan requirement for this at that time.
All right, any, Commissioner Wolf?
Yeah, I have several what I consider fairly large issues. Now that they've told us that their goal is to add another parking space, my thinking is that we don't have an appropriate site plan in the packet. The site plan just shows moving the dumpster, but it does not show a new parking space. There's a significant question of whether a new space at that point would be large enough. If you look at the geometry of it, if you move the dumpster 9 feet, the gain in width for the parking space would be less than that because you're moving the dumpster at something other than a right angle to the parking space. So I think it's essential that we have a complete and correct diagram. And my feeling is this is a change to their parking, and the entire parking lot needs to be evaluated for the size of the spaces to make sure they're meet our current standards. Second one, another fairly serious error in the diagram, the dimensions that they give in the area around the dumpster are at the very least misleading. I can't tell for sure. And when I looked at the diagram, I assumed that they were showing the dumpster with its, what do we call it? It's screening. And on the pad, so that was the entire exterior of the whole thing. And I went and looked at the site, and you look at it, and I could tell that there was something not right about what they're showing here. So I got a tape measure out of the car, and I made some measurements here. And my measurement showed that going from the southern corner of the fence that surrounds the enclosure, I don't want to confuse this with the fence. So the southern corner of the enclosure, that's the wooden structure around it, to the sidewalk is just under 14 feet. It's about 13 foot 6 or 13 foot 8 inches, something like that. So if you move that 9 feet, the enclosure, the corner of the enclosure would now actually be less than 5 feet from the sidewalk. It would be about 4.5 or something. The diagram shows it well beyond 5 feet from the sidewalk. So I think staff, someone's got to go out there and check that. I'm confident of my measurements, but what they're showing us is not what's there on the site. Let's see. Yeah, all right. I guess that's all about that issue. Third one, the enclosure for the dumpster, if you look at it, is basically a fence. It's actual cedar fencing material. At this location on this property, we would not allow a 6-foot fence within 20 feet of the sidewalk. The regulation that applies here is that in any yard that abuts a street, any fence that's located within 20 feet of the lot line is limited to, I believe it's 3 feet. It might be 4 feet. It's either 3 feet or 4 feet.
Like 3 feet, 8 inches.
It's which?
It's like 3 feet 8 inches if it's over 60% or 60% obstructed, and it's 3 feet 5 inches or something, or it's 4 feet if it's like chain link. It varies based on how much coverage the fence has.
Right. So a fence this high could not be built at this point. It would have to be within the 20 feet. And if you look at the fence that they actually have along the west lot line, it stops about 20 feet from the lot line. So it is conforming. So I've got to raise the question of, does our fence ordinance apply to a structure like this? If you look at the components of that cedar, the posts and boards and so forth, almost anyone would call that a fence. Do we really call it something else and give it a different regulation if we're not, if it's surrounding a dumpster? And I'll point out that the reason for that, and yet another reason not to allow this, is that is for visibility. So if you picture a car driving out of the driveway, if you have an obstruction close to the street, the driver cannot readily see other traffic approaching from that side, from on Huntington. And similarly, well, not only traffic, they would have trouble seeing pedestrians on the sidewalk. And similarly, a car coming around the bend heading east on Huntington would have trouble seeing the car coming out of the driveway. So moving the dumpster would create more of a visibility problem there. So I think all three of those issues need to be addressed before we consider this again.
Any other directions for staff, Commissioner Cahill?
Yeah, I agree with what Chris said about the visibility issues if this is moved. But secondarily, I would think, if anything, rather than moving the dumpster, if we're going to approve a site plan, we would want to require removal of that parking spot that currently exists on the other side of the dumpster towards Huntington, and that we require landscaping to make it as inconspicuous as possible. Since the applicant's saying that it can't be put in the back of the parking lot where you would normally expect to find it, and where it's found next door with the sorority next door. I think it's incumbent upon us to protect the residential neighborhood by requiring removal of that parking spot and sufficient landscaping to somewhat reduce the conspicuousness of the dumpster. And finally, this seems to be such a bizarre situation with no site plan, and I'm not sure what we're doing as far as a site plan here. Is it a site plan for a dumpster or a site plan for the whole property? I assume there may be parking issues if we go to a site plan for the whole property, insufficient parking, I mean. So I personally would appreciate some legal guidance from the city attorney as to how this is supposed to be handled.
Commissioner Wolf.
Yeah, first I want to repeat what I said before because of Commissioner Cahill's comments, that to me, this is very, very clearly a site plan for parking now that they have told us they want a parking space there. And that changes what we have to approve it. Second, I want to point out that for zoning purposes, unless I'm misinterpreting this, I'm sure the staff will correct me if I'm wrong, but this frontage on Huntington is the front of the lot for zoning purposes because of the shape of it. And our regulations for dumpsters do not allow them in a front yard at all. It's simply not allowed. Now, obviously, they have a difficult property here, so we may have to make concessions there, but it appears to me that they would need a variance to put it in there. That, you know, we might be able to approve the site plan, but that even by itself would not be enough. They would then have to go and get a variance for it.
Any other questions or directives for staff? Okay, it looks like we'll see this again. Do you have the info or the questions that you need to proceed with this, Mr. Purcell?
I think I have direction to go on, yes.
Thank you. Any remaining questions for staff? Right, we'll see this again at a future meeting, presumably.
Mr. Cornwell will be in touch tomorrow. Thank you.
That'll move us on to item 6.2. Consideration of a request for a site plan and special use permit approval from MJW Investment LLC for the property at 128 Collingwood Drive to establish a Class A multiple family residence, which is to say a fraternity. Ms. Schmidt.
Yes, this property was formerly a fraternity back in 2000, prior to 2010. In 2010, it was converted to a Class A apartment building and had an addition added to the back. It has it's a 3-story Tudor style architecture with a garden style basement. So total there are 14 3- and 4-bedroom units on between the 4 levels. This property is located in the RM32 City Center multiple family district. The properties that are located north, south, and west of the property are RM32. The properties located to the east are R2. It's right on the border of the B3 district, the downtown core area, with lots of municipal parking nearby. The actual property has 30 parking spaces, including 2 accessible parking spaces with access off the alley on the rear, east of the building. It has access both from Collingwood and the alley, giving it good accessibility. The total occupancy of the building are 56 persons, and I believe they are at full occupancy at this time. The engineer, the police, the fire, building, and housing did not have any concerns at this time. We do have the applicant for the ownership of the building and the fraternity member to speak to it this evening. With that, I think that's about all I have to present tonight.
Questions from Ms. Schmidt? Vice Chair Boyle?
So does it have a current rental license?
Does have a rental license, correct.
Okay, so it's licensed for the 56?
56 persons, correct.
And just so I understand, fraternities, do they have rental licenses?
Yes, they also have rental licenses.
Okay. So apparently we have a fraternity where every group of 4 people has a tiny living room and a tiny kitchen.
Right.
As opposed to our usual thought of a fraternity as having a large living room and a serviceable kitchen.
Exactly. Right now, we're running into a situation where you're all fully aware of that there's really a short of a fraternity and sorority houses for students to lease. This is the first time that we've actually had a Class A apartment building housing a full fraternity. We do have situations where the house isn't big enough to have all of the members, so they have satellite locations that are located in apartment buildings, but we don't look at those as fraternity sororities. We look at the main building where the activities are going to occur, and that's what the special use permit is on. This is the first, like I said, actual fraternity or sorority that we've had that's been fully located occupying a Class A apartment building. We do have proposals coming in for a few more fraternity sorority type houses, and we don't expect this to be an ongoing trend. We're assuming that most fraternities and sororities would prefer to be in a house type situation. Something that I would think that they would choose to locate in, but that might be changing as well. And that will be something that the applicant can probably address.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Schmidt? Seeing no hands. Commissioner Wolf? No? Okay. All right. Then if Mr. Parcell, presuming you're still nearby, if you could invite the applicant or the applicants to come forward.
Yes, I believe we have 3. If I miss one, let me know. There you go.
Hello, my name is
Heather.
Kayla. I
Please.
am the community manager with Cabro Properties. So we are just requesting the special use permit. Like Darcy has stated, prior to 2010, this building was a fraternity complex. And like she also mentioned, it is starting to become a little bit more common for fraternities and sororities to transition into family style buildings, since there is a shortage of traditional fraternity and sorority houses. So the fraternity house president is on the line, so I'm sure he can speak a little bit more to the reasons for their transition into a family style housing arrangement.
Hi, excuse me. My name is Matthew Salo. I am the current president of Alpha Sigma Phi, our chapter house here at 128 Collingwood Drive. We just moved into this house at the beginning of the school year, so fall semester last year. And the reason for our move into this house was that our lease on our previous house at 131 Bogue Street was up, and the property management company, CRMC, was, I believe, originally planning on demolishing the house. So we were looking for a larger space to house more members, as we are a fast growing chapter. We've grown considerably in the past couple of years. And to be completely honest, I wasn't entirely sure about the process of applying for the special use permit to be classified as a fraternity, but we are operating as a fraternity, as much as we can with COVID-19 this year, and we've been doing so for the past year or so now.
Okay, and can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Matthews.
Perfect. I am Jeremy, the area director for Cabrio Properties. I want to speak on the delay in application. Darcy actually reached out to me. We had no clue that this was a part of the process. Our thought process, we were just going to lease these rooms out to the fraternity, and that's all we needed. When she discussed that that wasn't the case, we tried to jump right on it and execute the special use permit application. I do apologize for the ignorance on my part that was a part of the process, and we're willing to do anything you guys need us to do to make sure that this is approved or can be approved, and whatever processes we need to take.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicants? Commissioner Wolf?
Looking at the floor plans for this building, it strikes me that it's a very unusual arrangement, not only for a fraternity, but even for an apartment building. The two things that I get from looking at the floor plan, and I'm asking, could you confirm that the building is indeed like that? Quite a few, probably even a majority of the apartments are multi-floor. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So very, very few of them are flats. They actually have internal staircases that go up. It looked as though some of them were actually 3 stories high.
There are only 2 units out of the total of 14 that have tri-levels.
But there are many 2 stories.
Yes, it's about 50-50% for bi-levels compared to flats.
The second thing is that it doesn't appear to have any internal common hallways that would lead from one apartment to another, or I'm not sure there's even any staircases. Is that correct?
It actually does have an internal hallway that allows the egress from to and from the building on both sides of the A and the B side of the property.
Can you point out where that is in the floor plan? Because I sure couldn't find it. Or can you describe where it is? Like if you come in the front door, there's a main front center door.
Yes.
Correct. And there's a hallway that takes you from the front door to the very back door and also up the stairs to each unit.
So you're saying if you come in the front door, then you can get to every unit in the building while staying inside the building?
That is correct. Not every unit inside of the building, because we have an A and a B side. So if you come into the front door on the A side, you can get to every unit within that side of the building. And if you come to the building on the B side, you can do the same exact thing.
Through a different door?
Correct.
Okay. I guess I'll have to look at the plan more carefully. It's so complicated. I looked at it and I simply could not find any hallways like that. Thank you.
My apologies. Thank you.
Ms. Schmidt, did you want to clarify? I mean, I think you mentioned specifically that you're seeing more applications, you're expecting to see more applications of fraternal organizations taking possession of or taking occupancy in what are traditionally been buildings, much like Commissioner Wolf had just described, where they're individual, well, they're the difference between Class A and Class B. And the reality is that a Class A use in this zone is permitted without a special use permit, correct?
Correct.
But the trigger here is that, I mean, it's a maybe it's not a gray area, but the reality is that it could potentially be leased to 14 different users, all of whom happen to be part of the same fraternity, as just happens to coincidentally happen in this case. But in this case, you're asking that they, I'll say, take an extra step and actually get the use approved, because it is indeed a Class B occupancy in a Class A building.
Correct. Right now, I think the gentleman had made the comment that CRMC, that's where their previous house was. CRMC is looking at potentially demoing 1 or 2 different fraternity sorority houses to make into new fraternity sorority houses. So they're demolishing a smaller one to make a bigger one, better one. And during that time, those people were displaced. So they're in a bigger apartment right now. We do see, we haven't, like I said, this is the first one that we've seen of this type, and that was because of the property wanting to redevelop it, the property owner. They are redeveloping it for the same use, so we don't see this as being a long-term trend, because there are property owners out there that know it's important to get some more fraternity and sororities redeveloped or in function for these fraternities and sororities. So it's a very unusual circumstance, and we're addressing that tonight.
Right. And so your expectation is that moving forward, city policy will probably be, I don't know if you can actually say it will be, but your intention is that if again, it's an apartment building, so essentially a Class A use.
Right.
If it's occupied as the main structure of a fraternal organization, it will be treated like a Class B use, as opposed to something like an annex building, which you had said earlier. But basically, because it's a Class A use, used for a Class B use, I guess, city policy will likely be you'll expect that the special use permit will be required as in this case.
Correct. The special use permit for fraternities and sorority really focuses on the use as a social gathering place. And this is a really unusual place to have social gatherings. Whether they do or not, we haven't heard from the applicants, and we assume that that's part of the fraternity and sorority as they have been through the history as being a social organization. So you expect to have additional members coming or guests coming.
Sure.
This is right on the edge of the downtown. It has lots of access to municipal parking. In the past, when it was a problem, it was focused around people parking in neighborhoods and causing a problem for residents that live in those neighborhoods. So making sure that they have enough parking and that they have a plan in place for those events is important.
Sure. Thank you. Any other question, Commissioner Wolf?
Following up on that, I'll ask the applicant, have you been holding fraternity activities at the site since August, and what kinds? Can you describe how you do it in a building that's not really designed for it? And if you haven't been, well, what have you been doing, and what do you have planned for the next year, after the COVID restrictions are no longer in effect and so forth?
Of course. So when we signed the lease for this property, one of the stipulations was that one of the apartments would be knocked down or just kind of renovated so that it could act as more of a common area for whether it be chapter meetings or just just a general area for people to congregate in if they don't live in the house, and even for those that do. So we've been proceeding with standard chapter functions in that way. We definitely haven't had the normal social experience this semester that we're all used to, and have been staying pretty vigilant in following the Ingham County health guidelines and doing everything we can to maintain a good relationship with both the public, the greater East Lansing community, and ELPD as well. We have had not any serious incidents with the ELPD, but just kind of good conversations to make sure that everything we're doing is okay in the eyes of the community, and to obviously make sure that no one gets in serious trouble or gets any tickets for public health violations.
Well done.
So you're saying that this one apartment has been modified already?
Yes, sir. The construction and renovations took place throughout the course of this past semester in the fall.
Okay. Was the staff aware of that? Because that does not appear in the staff report, does it? I guess I'm asking staff at this point. All right.
Staff was not aware of that, no.
All right. I think it might be important to find out more about that and include it in the staff report, because that's, converting an apartment for a use like that is pretty relevant to what we're approving here. So I'd like to see something with a little more detail about that in the staff report.
Okay, and we would expect them to have a space like that, so we can make sure that we know which unit it is and that we have plans available.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? All right then. Mr. Parcell, you're back again. I'm going to open up the public hearing for this application and invite members of the public to come forward if they have comments to make on the application for 128 Collingwood.
Okay. Same as last time. If you have nothing to comment on for this public hearing, or you have nothing to say this time, please just say pass when I say your initials or your phone number. Caller with the last three digits, 368. The floor is yours. Three six eight. Caller with the last three digits, 240.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the last three digits, 265.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the last three digits, 525.
Yes, hi. Oh, let me turn down the computer here. Hold on.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Rich and Joy Shaberg, and I'm on the board of First Church of Christ Scientists, which is 709 East Grand River there, right across the alley. And first of all, I'd like to say for the last year, the fellows that we've met at that fraternity, just great guys, super character. And if all the fraternities have that high caliber of men, we're in good shape. So we feel good about that. Saying that, and it's not their fault, the parking, as Matthew will be the first to tell you, has really been a problem. You know, there are just so many men there and so few spaces that we are constantly having to give, so they park in our lot. We are constantly having to give notices. We don't like to. Parking enforcement, I don't know how many times they've been called. Again, we don't like to. And, you know, there's liability issues, and I won't go through all the different things. So my question is there anything that can be done with the parking to help them find other spaces, do something? Because, you know, right now we're at kind of like a soft opening where just part of our membership is coming back. And when we're back in full swing, we have more activities. That parking lot's going to be even fuller. And it's just going to cause more problems, and hopefully we can come up with something so we're not constantly having to go back and forth. So just a comment, we don't object to the fraternity being there, but, you know, what are the rules for number of parking spaces? Excuse me, and you know, what can be done to help them find other spaces? So thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Caller with the last three digits, 963. The floor is yours.
Hi, Alice Dreger. I had 2 observations and 3 questions. Very briefly, one I think got answered. I was wondering if the lack of major space inside for gathering leads to more gathering outside. Second, I'm confused actually about how this whole system works, where basically Class A housing ends up used as a fraternity or sorority. I won't name the place where this happened or the sorority who did it, but there was a sorority that was in transition, I think last year, because their house was being renovated. And they ended up renting a whole group of apartments in one of the new big towers and all lived there together, which makes sense to me, but I don't think that they had any permission to live as a sorority. I don't know that they needed that permission, but then that would raise the question why this group needs this permission if they're basically living in an apartment building all together. So I think we have this weird gray area of the law. And related to that is a question about the annex houses, which have been referred to. So Darcy suggested that the annex houses don't require SUPs, but this strikes me as particularly ironic because it's the annex houses that drive the neighbors crazy more even than the main houses. That's because there's this polite game played where the fraternities and the sororities claim that they are dry houses, and instead they all go drink at the annex houses and have huge parties at the annex houses that spill into the whole neighborhood. So I don't know how to solve that issue, but the fact that we sort of look at a specific main house and ignore the annex houses does not seem to actually address the spirit of what we're trying to do in terms of making sure things work out. And again, I have my question from earlier. What stops a group from simply all renting individual apartments and hanging up a sign outside with fraternity letters? I think since the sign laws were changed under the decision of the Supreme Court, they can hang such signs. And so, again, I'm not at all sure whether or not this SUP system stands when you actually get down to the details of how these things can play out. And finally, it sounds as if there has been a clear violation of the zoning code here. There is a frat living as a frat without an SUP. Mr. Schumacher wrote into you. He lives across the alley, and I just happen to know because of our reporting that he ended up creating a barrier around his house that was in violation of the zoning code, and he was prosecuted by the city for many years, and he was jailed for 10 days for a violation of a zoning code. I think he may be the only person in East Lansing ever jailed for a violation of zoning code, but he was put in jail for it. So it would seem strange if this is an open violation of the zoning code and there's been an admission that there's that, and the man across the street who's objecting to this was jailed for violation of a zoning code. I think it raises all sorts of questions about equal treatment under the law. I'm not suggesting you jail the frat, but there's a violation here. And I don't know. I mean, the city council has decided to not prosecute violations in the case of other groups renting illegally in the case of Newman Law. So I don't know what to say about that other than it makes me uncomfortable whenever I look and see unequal treatment. It always makes me cringe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits, 889. Floor is yours.
Pat.
Thank you. Caller with the initials CK. The floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials DS. The floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials DSC. The floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials JH. The floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials JN. The floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials JMO. The floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials JMI. The floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. Caller with the initials LM. That's already established. That is caller 889. Caller with the initials MH. The floor is yours.
Pass.
Thank you. And caller with the initials RS. The floor is yours.
Yep, I spoke already.
Spoke. Oh, yep. Sorry. Thank you very much. That concludes your public hearing.
Thank you. Then that being the case, we'll close the public hearing for this application and return it to the commission for some direction to back to staff, it sounds like. Commissioner Wolf?
Yeah, I have three comments. One is we just heard from one of the callers about parking problems. With other fraternities and sororities, when we have considered their applications, we have looked at their parking and how adequate it was for the people living there, but then also considered how adequate it would be for them holding chapter meetings. And then we have put conditions of some kinds on those. In this report, I don't really see anything about an evaluation of what would happen during a chapter meeting. And I'm wondering if perhaps we need to have that in here. Second, with the remodeling of one of the apartments that they just told us about tonight, would that not change the occupancy limits for the building? If they've converted one of these to no longer be usable as bedrooms and living space, it seems though their rental license occupancy would need to be reevaluated. So could you look into that? Or
Yes.
And then in response to Ms. Drager, if you read our code literally today, this is not a zoning violation for them to have moved in here. I mean, you sort of heard that earlier from our discussion that it is a legitimate Class A multiple family building in RM 32, and we can't restrict the kind of people who move into it. If they choose to be friends or whatever association they have and they move in together, we can't really, it does not make it illegal. We're treating this in a way to give it a special use permit recognizing they might be having activities there, but technically they were not in violation up until this point, certainly the way I interpret it.
Any other questions or directives for staff? Vice Chair? Are you?
Yes, thank you. I was muted. Thank you. I agree with the things that Chris brought up. There is some discussion of parking in the report, and the talk of it mentions that there is some public parking within easy distance that should be able to serve the needs of the fraternity. But we've heard from a neighbor that there are parking problems with members. So maybe now we need to take a closer look at that. Looking at the number of people who are residing on site as the first step, and how much parking they are using. And that number may be problematic if one of the units has now become open plan and is not being used as a 3 or 4 bedroom apartment anymore. If the number of bedrooms in the building has decreased, I would assume that would decrease the number of people who could reside there. So I think those issues do need to be looked at before we look at this again.
Okay.
I've got one just regarding Mr. Schumacher's memo. Had some issues with potential lighting, and I know we've checked into things like this before at other sites. If we could make sure that the lighting that's in place is properly mounted or screened or directed, and so on. Any other questions or directives for staff? All right, then we will see this at a future meeting. Thank you, applicants. We'll not see you later, but we'll presumably speak with you at a later date. That will move us on to our old business agenda, item 7.1. The consideration of a special use permit application from Collegiate Catering East Lansing LLC for the property at 133 Evergreen Avenue to allow for the restaurant to serve alcoholic beverages. This is Mr. Purcell.
It is. Hello again. So we had a couple questions from the Planning Commission on March 10th, which I have attempted to address in the staff report with some supplemental material from the applicant. Number one was what restrictions were put in place for the Marriott Hotel, which is at 300 MAC Avenue. A search through the memorandum of special use permit for the Marriott showed that it was granted a special use permit in 2014 to move the restaurant and bar to the first floor of the hotel. This restaurant and bar space at the Marriott was approximately 2,400 square feet with 56 seats. Guests were able to travel throughout the restaurant space, and it was not physically separated through the remainder of the hotel lobby. The only conditions of approval that seemed relevant to this application are no more than 100 people shall be served alcohol in this open area at any time. There must be a state liquor license on file. The restaurant shall comply with the requirements and performance standards of what classifies a restaurant in our code, and the restaurant shall close no later than midnight daily. There were concerns and questions throughout the outdoor area of the rooftop bar here at the Graduate. We were told and reviewed that the glass barrier around the outside on the deck area is 54 inches tall. And the applicant has indicated per the discussion at the last meeting that they will use plastic for the outdoor area instead of glass. The final really big question we had is what area in the lobby was going to be used for patrons of the cafe, and if food and beverage could be taken throughout the entire lobby. And a conversation with Miss Maury indicated to us that they could take the food kind of throughout the lobby. However, there was this is difficult to do on one screen, area that she had submitted in the plans that kind of delineates where the seating area is on the ground floor intended to be. but did specify that people could move freely throughout the space. Mr. Haywood and I had a discussion about the menu down in the Poindexter. There was some discussion at the last meeting about if menu items purchased at the trophy room could be available downstairs. It would be a shared menu. Reminder to the applicant, you are required to have 8 menu items on file to be classified as a restaurant, which we're considering the Poindexter as at this point in time. So you may need to add something to the menu. But other than that, I know Commissioner Wolf had a question that he mentioned to me earlier today about the 50% space of the ground floor of the restaurant. I need to go over and find that unless you want to elaborate while I'm digging over for it, Commissioner Wolf. But that's the update of the information we've gathered from the applicant.
Yeah, my question was simply that I didn't understand it. It was in a question that you sent to the applicant, and it was pointing out section, what is it, 8-1?
181.
Right. And what I wanted was an explanation from staff of why we have that requirement. I tried to picture what it was establishing or preventing or.
I don't know why that requirement.
What it says is not more than 50% of the gross floor area open to the general public shall be used for purposes other than seating for diners consisting of tables, chairs, booths, and necessary aisleways.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another sentence, but it's that single one that's the key one. So my question is, why was this put in our code and what is it doing for us?
Ms. Schmidt has an answer, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, this was put into the code because the city did not want the restaurants to come in as a restaurant and then turn into a nightclub with a large dance floor at a certain time. So that was their way of kind of hoping that, you know, if there was going to be a dance floor, it would be a reasonable size and it wouldn't be the entire restaurant.
Okay, that was a theory that I came up with, but I wasn't sure if that was
You're right.
the reason for it. All right. It does, I pointed out that they did not update the numbers on page 18 here when they gave us the new numbers and the diagram that's now at the end of the report. But I think it's pretty clear that they meet the requirement anyway. So I'm not that concerned about it. I do have a question. Mr. Parcell, I don't know, were you finished with what you were saying? Or?
Nope, totally updated. I just wanted to loop you in at the end before I forgot to address your email.
Okay, well, at the Marriott, they have that requirement or restriction that no more than 100 patrons can be served alcohol at one time, which kind of surprised me. I kind of understand the reasoning because it actually related to some of our discussion about this particular one as to what could happen there during a football Saturday if they get flooded with people who want to drink. And so it seems difficult to enforce. But what I'm getting at is if we already did this for the Marriott, to be consistent, it seems to me as though we need the same thing here. I mean, the circumstances are virtually identical. And the question I would ask is how did we come up with 100 for the Marriott? Was it based on square footage there or something else? And how would we come up with a number for this location?
That's a great question. I don't know. Darcy may. I wasn't here when that one went through. It may relate to occupancy, but there wasn't much in the staff file electronically available other than the memorandums that I could pull off of.
wish I could answer my own question, but I feel as though it would be appropriate to do something along the same lines to be consistent, but I'm kind of at a loss as to how to do it.
Yeah, I am unsure.
You don't think it was set up based on sort of occupancy limits?
That's my best guess, is that it would be occupancy limits for the lobby, but I don't unfortunately have much to go off of in the application there.
Vice Chair Boyle?
Yeah, I think it would be the square footage in the Marriott and what would be a reasonable concentration for the area that was like where people were likely to be congregating if they're having a beverage. And when you look at that square footage, what would be the reasonable limit? Because you don't want 300 people standing in the lobby area drinking.
I agreed. I know that it looks like the applicants have got about half a dozen people that are here. I don't know who each of them is, but if that, I see that there's part of the revised drawings this month or this week have indeed occupancy limits that are circled with red revision clouds. And I'm wondering if the person that did that is on the line and if that will provide us perhaps some guidance as to a potential limit.
Yep, I will go through and bring them all in. One moment. Mr. Solmiani, Mr. Hayek, Ms. Maury, Mr. Mincer, Mr. Hanson, and okay, there's all of your applicants.
Alrighty, I can address or hypothesize on the question for the Marriott. Noticing that the Marriott building also has office space and some other retail, it's potentially to limit any interaction with those tenants. Obviously, we are simply a hotel and we have maximum capacity limits identified by code on our one-page document, which I noticed in the packet. Jake, I think this was the old version of the one page, but I can just describe the new numbers to you. In Poindexter, which is the lobby space, the maximum capacity allowed by code in that space is 204 people, and we have 82 seats. On the trophy room space, which is the 10th floor rooftop bar, the maximum capacity on the interior space is 128 people on the interior and 83 people on the exterior. And as far as the seats actually go for those spaces, it's 48 on the interior and 48 on the exterior.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yeah, that's very different than, at least for the cafe, than what's in the staff report. So I think we need to get the staff report updated. I can't quite find where the one page is in the whole document, but in particular on page 2 of the staff report, it says the lobby, well, I guess it says the cafe has a maximum occupancy of 94.
Commissioner Wolf, it's page, sorry, but it's page 126 of the big packet.
Okay, so it says the cafe has a proposed area of 1,400 square feet and a maximum occupancy of 94 people. But now with their new information, we are redefining, as under my understanding, we're redefining what is the cafe to be the red area on that last diagram. And now its occupancy is going to be much higher. I believe he just said 204 or
Yes.
So verify that number, because that is actually what shows on the, it's either page 25 of 36 of the staff report for this item or page 126 of 261 of our entire packet, however you've got it divided. But the numbers match, the seat number is off, but the square footage numbers match what Mr. Minster has just quoted. Mr. Minster, if you're still on the line, did you say 86 seats?
It is 82 seats.
Okay, your one pager says 94 cafe area only. Perhaps you're thinking of some sort of standing like standing bar or something like that.
Correct. Yeah, I have to apologize. This is the old one pager. I thought I had sent the revised version that clarifies what the maximum standing capacity versus
there you go
seated capacity is, which would be that 82 seated number.
Excuse me, this is Rebecca. Sorry to interrupt. I believe that is added at the very last item of the agenda, the new one.
She is correct.
Yes, it's there. So back to my point, those numbers need to get into page 2 of the staff report. In particular, the maximum capacity for Poindexter is now in error in the staff report on page 2.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Cahill.
The staff report indicates that the enclosure around the outdoor patio is 54 inches. Is that from the floor or on top of a ledge, or what does that mean?
This is Josh Mincer again. The 54 inches is taken, it's a paver system that is the floor of the patio. So it's taken from the top of the pavers to the top of the glass on the partition.
Okay. At our last meeting, when we were talking about the enclosure, the applicants' representatives, I'm not sure who it was at the time, said there were enclosures like this, or there were patios like this in 2 other properties, one in Oxford, Mississippi, and one in Tucson. And I tried to get on the internet to see what they looked like. The one in Tucson was quite different. It's only on the 3rd floor, above the 3rd floor, and there are setbacks and there are tables all the way around, so no one can approach the counter, might be a better description, all the way around, so no one can lean over the edge of the building there. And then in Tucson, I saw some pictures I found in different places, and that enclosure, that's a 14-story building, which is more akin to what we're dealing with here. That enclosure looks quite a bit higher than 54 inches, at least in the picture. Can you tell me how high that one is?
Daryl, do you have that offhand?
Yeah, I was looking for my unmute. Yeah, so this is Daryl Salmiani. I believe that enclosure is about 72 inches.
Yeah, are you taking exception to the 54-inch height and combination with the applicant's indication that they're going to be using plasticware on the deck?
Well, that's part of my concern. I would really rather prefer not to care what type of glassware they were using, if the enclosure is high enough. And the one that seems similar to our situation here, which is 10 stories, is 72 inches in Tucson and 54 inches here. Is there a reason we wouldn't need as much protection as they do in Tucson?
This is Daryl Slimiani again. In Tucson, the height of that glazing was dictated by the higher winds at that elevation and that particular area. It was not meant to be a deterrent per se. It was to deal with wind velocities at that elevation and location of the building.
Okay.
Thank you. Any remaining questions for staff or for the applicant?
Yeah, I do.
Please, Commissioner Cahill. Yep.
I saw in the staff report as indicated that apparently you're proposing to use plastic glassware or non-glassware anyway on the patio. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Any one of the applicants could answer.
That is correct.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It seemed like there was a concern over glassware,
Yes.
which we understand. So we decided to self-impose plastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. The concern over glassware is only if someone can lean over the enclosure on the property. And at 54 inches, I'm 5'10". But one reason I wore this shirt is because 54 inches is right about here on me. And you very easily put your arms up over something at 54 inches. But I suppose if you're agreeing to, my concerns about something being dropped over the ledge by someone leaning, especially when you're drinking in a bar type scene, which anyone, people bump into each other. You could be holding a glass over the edge and someone bumps you from behind or next to you or something, and all of a sudden it's lost down. And especially in this case where the building drops straight down onto a public sidewalk. You know, if we had a higher enclosure, I wouldn't have that concern.
This is Daryl Slimiani. I'm not sure this would alleviate that concern. That sidewalk will be approximately 20 feet wide. The current sidewalk is 10 foot and we are set back 10 foot from that sidewalk. So agreed with that concern. But there is, you know, the building is not right on a 5 or 7 foot wide sidewalk where you're gonna be walking directly against the building. We are set back quite a bit.
This is Jake Parcell. You said it's on pavers too, though, so it should be taller than 54 inches, right? Even if just some.
The measurements from the top of the paver to well, overall, yes, but from the top of the paver to the top of the glazing is 54 inches.
So if you're standing in there, though, then it's slightly taller than 54 inches.
No, it's
no.
All
right, I guess.
When you're standing on the pavers, if your feet are on the pavers and you're taking a tape measure from the pavers to the top of the glass, it is 54 inches.
Perfect. Okay. Sorry, I got confused.
Commissioner Wolf.
Will you have room service in the hotel from one or both of the restaurants for guests in their rooms?
No.
Will you have mini bars in the rooms with alcohol?
No.
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any remaining questions for the applicant? A motion would be in order. There is one for our use on page 6 of 36 of the staff report. Commissioner Cahill?
I was wondering, is the applicant proposing, is it just on the patio that the non-glassware would be used, or is it on the entire restaurant? And how would it be controlled whether someone walks out with the glass onto the patio?
Hello, everyone. This is Jan Hayek. I finally figured out how to unmute, so I can take that question. Sorry about that. I apologize. So really, that top floor, we're going to only have glass at the bar area. And then if you actually walk away to the bar and then walk outside, you're going to be given plastic. And we also have staff and signage that we're going to be putting in place to monitor that. So anybody that walks outside and has glass in their hands, our staff is going to either stop right away or walk out and switch that out for them with plastic.
And when you say that there's a setback of 10 feet, I wasn't really aware of that. What is it that's down there? I thought the sidewalk came right up to the building.
This is Daryl Slomiani. It does. I was just trying to illustrate that the sidewalk there is essentially 20 feet wide, and that the building is not, that the sidewalk is wide enough where people would be further away from the building than typically if the building was right on the lot line as they walk down the sidewalk naturally.
But if they're looking through a window down below or whatever, they'd be directly below that, right?
Correct.
And on a football weekend or something where the sidewalks might be full, they'd be directly under the ledge, right?
Potentially, yes.
And I take it the applicant would not be willing to put, say, 60 inches or 66 inches of enclosure rather than the 54?
We would have to review timing on that in terms of getting product. But we can review that.
Well, this is Jan again. I wanted to note that, with the issue of bringing plasticware closer to the edge, we can also, with our staff and signage as well, we can also kind of impose people from not bringing anything closer to that edge in terms of drinkware. We can try to maintain all that drinks are on the tables only and where they're seating. And if people are walking around that they can't actually carry their drinks to the edge, we can also try to impose that as well.
How would you do that?
Well, we have servers out there, so the minute you see someone walk closer to the edge with a drink in their hand, you stop them. In addition to it's signage and staff is really what we're going to have to do.
That seems like an enforcement nightmare to me.
Okay, so in terms of procedure, if the planning commission wants to see a higher railing, then that should probably come as part of a condition based on a motion. So I will once again remind us, if we're done with discussion for which there is currently no motion, let's have a motion so that we can discuss any potential, I see hands, so that we could discuss potential conditions based on that motion. I saw Commissioner Sullivan's hand, then I saw Commissioner Wolf's hand.
Yeah, real quick. So I'm still not clear if the applicant is self-imposing the glassware condition or if we are, because on the staff report, I see item or condition 14, which may even be two conditions merged together that mentions glassware being prohibited in the outdoor service area of the rooftop.
As I see it, there was a response to an issue that was raised at our last meeting, page 6.
Page 7, item 14.
Thank you. So it comes up as a condition currently, so as to presumably include the applicant's intention as part of a condition, as part of approval. So indeed, it sounds to me like the applicant was inclined to do so anyway, and it's included as a condition. Does that help clarify? I don't know that, I don't remember seeing it there before, but I may have overlooked it.
Sure, yeah.
Currently, it's included as a condition right now, but it sounds to me like the applicant was amenable to that idea to begin with.
Okay, well then just wanted to clarify, they're not self-imposing, it's a condition in the staff report.
It may be a self-imposed condition. Basically, it will become part of the condition of approval. You know, it sounds to me like it may very well be something that they had agreed to as a condition before. Commissioner Wolf?
Yeah, I'm still concerned about the difference between the Marriott and this one. In that limit of the number of people who can be served alcohol at one time. I guess, you know, we're close to being ready to perhaps recommend approval on this, but I hate to do it leaving that hanging. I guess it's something we could leave it up to City Council to decide what to do if we prefer to pass this on, but I guess staff have no suggestions about what to do for that. We could put the same condition on this one. I suspect the lobby of the Marriott is larger than this one. I have trouble being sure about that, but if we were to limit it to 100 here, then it would certainly not be too large, assuming this space is actually smaller than the Marriott.
Perhaps we could add that to a condition to the recommendation. If the applicant has objection to that, it can be brought before City Council.
No, we don't have objection to that. We're fine with that.
You're welcome to confer amongst yourselves after. But I appreciate that, Mr. Is it Hayek?
All right, thanks.
If discussion is complete, I'll remind us once more that a motion would be in order here. Commissioner Wolf.
I will move that in the matter of the request from GEMI owner LLC for special use permit approval for the property at 133 Evergreen Avenue to allow the establishment of a restaurant including alcohol sales, that we recommend approval to City Council subject to the lengthy 17 conditions in the staff report.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Boyle.
Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Wolf and seconded by Vice Chair Boyle to recommend approval of City Council subject to the 17 conditions outlined in the staff report. Is there any is there any discussion on that motion? Mr. Hayward, I'll start with you.
So excuse me, I'm reading condition number 14. It almost looks like it was a leftover, or that the second half of that should have been a separate condition. It says glassware shall be prohibited in the outdoor service area of the rooftop restaurant, period. And then there's like number 3. And then it says the outdoor service area shall be effectively delineated and contained with fencing, shrubbery, or similar means to control access to the area. I don't know why the number 3 is there. It could have been a formatting issue.
There's certainly related topics that you sort of delineate indoor and outdoor, and in doing so, delineate the location where glass and/or plastic will not mix.
Okay. Well, I can, if it doesn't provide anybody any heartburn, I'll just delete the number 3 so it doesn't look like there's an error in it.
Thank you. I saw Commissioner Wolf and then Vice Chair Boyle.
have two things. Looking at the floor plan for the top floor, it appeared to me that the outdoor service area is already delineated by walls and doors and so forth. I wonder if the applicants can confirm that arrangement. In other words, no other delineation would be needed.
Daryl Slomiani, yes, that is correct. No further delineation would be needed.
So there's no part of that would be considered to not be the serving area.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, if that part of the condition's even necessary. It doesn't hurt to have it in there.
Not yet. Commissioner Wolf.
All right, I want to make a couple motions to amend.
Very well.
So since we brought this up, the first one would be to amend condition 14 to remove everything after the first period, where it would end with "of the rooftop restaurant."
Thank you. Is there a second on that motion?
Second, Boyle.
It's been moved by Commissioner Wolf and seconded by Vice Chair Boyle to strike the second sentence in the staff reports, condition number 14. Is there any discussion on that motion? I'm seeing no hands. Let's have a roll call vote, please, Mr. Haywood.
Thank you. Bowman,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Hendricks, oops, absent. Lapine,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
and Wolf.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
That brings us back to the main motion. Commissioner Wolf.
I'll move an 18th condition, which would be no more than 100 patrons shall be served alcohol in the, I guess, ground floor restaurant at any time. Is that the best description? I hate to say the Poindexter, or in case they change the name.
Fair enough.
Or should it say the lobby? Or, well, they're being served in the restaurant. I'll leave it at that. The ground floor.
I think that's clear. Is there a second on that motion?
Second, Boyle.
Thank you. That's been moved by Commissioner Wolf and seconded by Vice Chair Boyle. Is there any discussion on that motion? All right, seeing no hands, Mr. Haywood, could we have a roll call vote again, please?
Bowman,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Lapine,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Wolf.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Carries again. Again, that brings us back to the main motion. Commissioner Wolf.
Yeah, I'll just want to say that this turned out to be a more complicated process for this SUP than expected. I'm certainly glad that they're here and wish them well with both of their restaurants. It turned out to be difficult because the situation is different than our typical restaurants in the city. So we had to get over some of these little complications, but I think we've made it and we'll be glad to have them.
Mr. Parcell, have you muted the applicants?
I did now.
No, please don't.
Oh.
I'm just trying to deal with the remote reality of our meetings. Mr. Minster has some questions he'd like to raise regarding item 10. Again, if we were meeting in person, I would have seen an urgent look on his face or at least a hand raised. We're actually already, we're basically, we have a motion on the floor and the applicant would like to make some comment, and I'm going to permit it. Mr. Minster, if you would.
Yes, thank you. And would just like to say we as well cannot wait to introduce the graduate into the East Lansing community. One point on number 10 on the recommendations that I'm not sure if it was intentional or potentially a typo. On the hours for Friday operation, it says 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. The original request was 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. on Friday.
Aye. I'm certainly open to ideas about how to handle this. I'm quite comfortable with offering an amendment if that's what we had discussed previously, but to be honest with you, I don't remember what the times were. I would, Mr. Haywood and then Commissioner Cahill, please.
Yeah, he's correct. It was a typo.
Right.
In the staff, earlier in the staff report, it says 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. I think it's just written an hour short.
Commissioner Wolf.
I'll move to amend condition number 10 to
Thank
change
you.
Friday hours to close at 12 a.m. instead of 11 p.m.
Is that a second, Commissioner Sullivan, or?
Yeah, a second and a comment. If we're going to be revising this condition anyways, there's a typo for Sunday as well. Where it says 10.
I think that's what they intended on Sunday.
Yeah, but it should be at two zeros.
Should have 2 extra zeros, or you actually rather just eliminate the.
I see.
Fair enough. It's been moved by Commissioner Wolf and seconded by Commissioner Sullivan to modify the stated hours of operation to 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. Friday. That is under condition 10. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Haywood, could we please once again have a roll call vote?
Bowman.
Yes.
Boyle.
Yes.
Cahill.
Yes.
Lapine.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
And Wolf.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thanks. Thank you. That brings us back again to the main motion. Commissioner Cahill.
Yeah, I do have one question about the hours, just out of curiosity. Monday through Thursday are 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. and then on Friday it switches to 4 p.m. from 7 a.m. Is there a rationale for that, or?
Mr. Mincer?
I mean, if the applicant's happy with it, that's fine, but
yeah.
I'm just curious.
Sorry, I was trying to find the mute button again. I believe this note, now that I'm looking at it, combines the hours of the Poindexter coffee shop and the trophy room rooftop bar. If you were to reference the one-pager document, we have separate hours for each venue, where the Poindexter is open daily from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. And the trophy room is Monday to Thursday, 4 p.m. to 11 p.m., Friday, 4 p.m. to 12 a.m., Saturday, 12 to 12, and Sunday, 12 to 10.
This specifically refers to the rooftop bar restaurant.
Exactly.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yeah, so we need another correction here, right? The opening time for the rooftop restaurant is 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Is that correct? The opening time?
That is correct.
And it's also, it closes at 11, no, sorry.
You're right.
Closes at 11, Monday through Thursday, midnight on Friday.
That is correct.
And then it's open noon to midnight on Saturday and noon to 10 p.m. on Sunday.
Also correct. Thank you.
All right, I'll move to amend condition number 10. So let's see, I think all we need to do is change the occurrence of 7 a.m. should be changed to 4 p.m.
Correct.
So it will be open from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And the rest of it is now correct.
Is that a second, Commissioner Cahill?
No, because I have a question about this.
Okay, well, we need a second before we can discuss.
Second.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any discussion on this motion? Commissioner Cahill.
Yeah, I just wonder, that's why I raised the question out of curiosity before. On the rooftop, why would we care what time it opens? Isn't our concern what time it closes? And I would think the applicant would like to have more flexibility if they decide they want to open at 3 p.m. on weekends or something. I don't see why they shouldn't be able to.
Commissioner or Mr. Haywood.
If I'm thinking correctly, it's so that they don't open right back up at 1 a.m. or something. It establishes a period when they need to be closed.
Okay, yeah, but then we could leave the opening for every day at 7 a.m. probably. Just so it's closed from that time until the next morning.
Just following what the applicant has asked for.
Okay.
Any other discussion on this motion? Mr. Haywood, could we have once again have a roll call?
Bowman,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Lapine,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Wolf.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Brings us back to the main motion. Now with 18 conditions and 4 additional motions attached to it. Any further discussion on the main motion? Commissioner Cahill.
I would just say that I would prefer that there be a higher enclosure to alleviate my concerns about leaning over the top of it and dropping something. But since the applicant seems to be amenable to eliminating glassware, that reduces my concern about it. So I will be voting in favor.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Hayward, one more time with a roll call vote, please.
Bowman,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Lapine,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
and Wolf.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And thank you for the entourage of applicants.
Call vote, please.
Thank you, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the grand opening. Applicants.
Yes.
Yes.
Very much.
Oh, goodness.
Any toffee fans are welcome at the bar. So
Thank you. Good evening. That'll move us on to item 7.2, Shaping the Avenue Work Session, Review of Public Comments and Action Items. Ms. Schmidt.
We are nearing the end of a lot of the items that we have on our list to discuss. There are the last two items, 8 and 9, that we do not have information for you yet, but do expect to have another work session in a couple weeks to get those opinions for you. Meanwhile, staff would be happy to answer any questions you have concerning the number 3 through 7 on the list of items that the Planning Commission is going to hopefully resolve this evening.
Which page is that 3 through 6 on?
I'm sorry.
It's page 5 and 6? Or?
5 and 6, correct.
Okay.
I don't know that this is a question. It's a comment, sort of, and a question, perhaps. It sounds to me like we should probably be, whether it's the committee that drafts it or if it's something that's undertaken by the entire commission, some slightly better rationale for instituting architectural standards, something slightly beyond, although aesthetics are certainly an acceptable justification. It sounds like we might need to better justify why architectural standards would be incorporated. You're muted.
We will, staff will work on.
Or staff, excuse me. Thanks, Darcy.
Yes, yes, staff will work on some language for that.
Any other questions for staff? Comments? It sounds like we're looking for a little bit more, a couple more opinions from the city attorney. Okay. All right, thanks for that update. I think that we were going to permit people to speak, but it looks like we're nearly empty. Is Mr. Parcell gone?
Yes, he's left already.
Ms. Urdialis, are you capable of opening up the doors so that any of the remaining people can make comments?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
The caller with the last 3 digits of their number 963, you are allowed to talk.
Pass, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Drager.
The caller with the initial CK, you are allowed to talk.
Pass.
We're next, yep. We'll be with you momentarily.
And the caller with the initials DS, you are allowed to talk.
Pass.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Urdialis.
Yes.
All right, I'll just ask one more time. Does any members of the commission have any questions for staff or need of clarification? All right, that'll move us on to the final item on our agenda. Item 8.1 under new business. I can scroll up. 8.1 is an essential service and application from Consumers Energy for approval to reconstruct the National Natural Gas Regulator Station at 1498 South Harrison Road, including the replacement of piping, valves, and building. And I presume this is Ms. Schmidt. Sorry, I can't click through to the report. Mr. Haywood, sorry, thank you.
No worries. Thank you. So this is, as Mr. Bowman said, it's the proposed reconstruction of the existing gas regulator station and equipment there at 1498 South Harrison Road. The subject parcel is owned University. The regulator station is located at the very northeast corner of the property, right adjacent to the railroad right-of-way and Harrison Road, on property owned by Michigan State University, and is, the parcel extends much larger than the subject area, extends farther west over 2,500 feet to US 127. The property to the north is the site of the railroad right-of-way and the East Lansing train station, and is zoned M1. The property to the east of Harrison is also zone U and occupied by Michigan State University facilities. I guess with that, I would take any questions or comments.
Question for Mr. Haywood, and I will note that the applicants have been patiently waiting throughout our meeting and are available as well. Commissioner Cahill and then Commissioner Wolf.
I was unable to determine what type of landscaping would be in place for this. And the reason I have that concern is we had construction at Bircham and Hagedorn that we approved. But it's become kind of an eyesore on that corner. At the time, you just thought, oh, I remember it coming up kind of late in a meeting or whatever, and we approved it. Unfortunately, I approved it. But now that I see what was actually built there, I think it looks horrible. I don't know if anyone can see. I went out and took a picture today.
It's
of it. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, if you could see it, there's a couple little bushes inside on sort of the back corner of it by the school. But here we have this beautiful school behind it, and then this sort of ugly structure right on the corner. And it's our fault, we let it happen. But having seen that, I'm very sensitive to what I assume Consumers Energy was going to put something in there, understanding the location of this and the need to have something look fairly nice. And maybe I didn't understand the plans. I thought most of it was going to be inside that building, and it's not. This time I'm very concerned about what it's going to look like. I recognize we're talking about a different location than we were at Hagedorn and Bircham, but that's also a location that's seeing a lot of activity, from the new train station to things that are being proposed just south of that. And so I want to see what will be done to make this look decent anyway in that area. And
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Cahill. Any other questions for staff or for the applicant? Commissioner Wolf?
I recall when we've had this type of application before, we normally had a, well, maybe a one-page or several paragraph explanation from the applicant as to why the work was being done. And we don't seem to have that this time. All we have is a statement of the work. I would like to know, why are we replacing this? So I think we have an applicant here. We can find out from them, but I also think once they give us an answer, that should go in the staff report in some form, possibly as a written document that they could submit to go with it.
The applicants are free to talk.
Ms. Killeen and Mr. Scott, welcome.
Thank you. Courtney, do you want to give an explanation on why the work is taking place?
We are upgrading the site. A lot of our sites, they age over time, and we need to upgrade them to be in compliance with current standards and also to meet increased load.
Thank you. Commissioner Wolf, does that answer your question?
I guess if that's the best they can do. I was expecting something a little bit more explanatory than that, but
there's the building as buildings of that nature go, it's an industrial brick building. I think it's quite charming, but it's definitely seen better days. The brick has got horizontal cracking in it, and it does need a replacement. I'm entirely sympathetic to Commissioner Cahill's concern about the northeast corner of Hagedorn and Bircham. I share the same regret about what is there now and what I had a hand in approving or recommending approval of to be there. I would submit that this current location is significantly less urbane than that site, and that I don't know that would benefit from any screening shrubbery that I would have liked to have seen at Hagedorn and Bircham.
To address Mr. Wolf's concerns there as well, basically, it is, as Courtney mentioned there, a lot of improvements are being made to the site, newer technology, the ability to remotely monitor the facility and stuff like that. And so basically, again, increasing the capacity of the facility and just bringing it up to a more reliable site as far as the equipment and stuff on that. As you mentioned, it's a fairly old station, and just trying to bring it up to the modern age of the ability to remote monitor and stuff like that. So.
Thank you, Mr. Scott and Ms. Colleen. Thank you both. Any remaining questions for staff or for the applicant? I believe that there's motion language in our packet. Page 3 of the staff report. Commissioner Wolf.
I will move that in the matter of the reconstruction of the natural gas regulator station at 1498 South Harrison Road, that we approve that project for the reason that a necessity exists for the building to provide service, heating, fuel to the community. And I guess we have no conditions at the moment.
Thank you. It's a motion.
Second.
Is that Commissioner Sullivan?
Yep, Sullivan, second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Wolf and seconded by Commissioner Sullivan to approve the installation of the National Gas Regulator Station at 1498 South Harrison Road. Is there any discussion on that motion? Commissioner Wolf.
Sure, I'll ask a facetious question. Can we put in a condition here that they improve the property at Hagedorn and Bircham as a requirement to be able to do this?
Well, so I'll point you to section 5148. It kind of establishes the authority to review this. And it states that right off the bat, it says essential services shall be exempt from the provisions of this chapter. So, and then goes on to say, really that the role here is that you have to review it and determine that it is an essential service, the way it's defined, and that's utilities and other things like that. And that's really, I think, the limit of your role here is to declare, is it a essential service or is it not? And if it's not, then it kind of falls into the category of our zoning regulations and that kind of thing. But if it's an essential service, then you're limited to what you can do. And it's really, from my perspective and from my interpretation of this, your only role here is to put it in or out of that category.
Except that, so you pointed us to the language, and so I'll read the last. I actually think Commissioner Wolf's question answered itself, and I think he knew that when he asked it. But the commission shall also determine the location, size, design, and use of such a building, including all necessary landscaping and connection therewith. Of course, this isn't connected to that. This site isn't connected to the Bircham and Hagedorn site, which I guess that's all there is to say about that. The reality is though that landscaping is potentially an issue that could be considered by this body.
Right. What I was suggesting though is that we don't really have a standard to apply. Like we don't, like from our zoning code.
Oh, I see.
We couldn't say based on our zoning code, you have to provide X number of things.
Fair.
So you have to be reasonable given, you know, what they're proposing.
Commissioner Cahill.
I recall what Mr. Haywood just said now, being part of the discussion about Bertram and Hagedorn. And I wish there was something we could do about the type of facility and the arrangements that are made by Consumers Power. So since we're limited to that, since Consumers Power is in front of us, I would hope that they would take it back to corporate headquarters to say, you know, we really did build something awful at Bertram and Hagedorn. And as a matter of public spirit, I would hope that they would do something to make it look better. We've got a beautiful school right behind it. We've got one just being built right across the street. We've got the beautiful old school on the other corner. And then we've got this mess that blocks the view of McDonald School. So I would hope they would take that back to corporate and consider doing something to be a better partner in our community.
Okay. So noted. Commissioner Williams.
I just want to second that suggestion. Every single time I drive by it, I'm disappointed.
Yeah, you can be disappointed in me because I had a part in it, I'm afraid. Mea culpa, mea culpa. Not singularly, of course, but
maybe we can seek some voluntary remedy.
There you go.
It really does look terrible. So thanks for raising it, Jack.
As I recall, we were told back on the Bertram and Hagedorn exactly what Dave said, that we didn't have the authority to really control it.
All right. Any other discussion on the motion? All right, let's have one final roll call vote for the evening. Mr. Haywood?
Bowman,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Lapine,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
and Wolf.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Ms. Killian, Mr. Scott, thank you. And thank you for your patience.
Yeah. And
Thank
thank you. Yeah, thank you as well. And we will just, as you mentioned, just talk with the powers that be and see if there is anything. But again, unfortunately, it's the mechanical layout that we're stuck with, and so it's just hard to screen a lot of that stuff. So
We appreciate your comments and feedback on that. And as Doug said, we will take that back to our internal folks and consumers and see if there's anything that can be done about that.
Thank you both.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you.
Item 9, Commissioner concerns. I would like to start by offering the very best of luck to Mr. Haywood and in his upcoming endeavor, and I look forward to I guess continued, hopefully, I would imagine you're going to continue your Friday evening dinners once the weather breaks and you looked up, I'll just say, hopefully we'll have the opportunities to cross paths in the future and break bread or share a beverage or something like that. And sounds like a great opportunity for you. And I really do wish you the very best of luck.
Appreciate that very much. We are planning to do something this year. We don't know what exactly, but we are planning to do outdoor events and that kind of thing. So look for that. We haven't confirmed anything yet for the season. We're too busy planting things right now.
There you go.
From freezing. But I do want to say that, I want to thank everyone who I've worked with in this group and planning commissioners before. And generally, planning commissioners are a very great group of people to work for. They bridge that divide between the political body and the staff body so well. You guys are so professional and so thorough and prepared that it makes our job easy or easier, and certainly a more pleasant to hear your careful consideration to things. It's unlike any board that I've ever worked with, particularly East Lansing's board, being so well-rounded in all of your backgrounds and your skill level. So I want to thank you for that. And I'm going to take this experience and all of your input and all of your, all your example of leadership and careful consideration and professionalism, and take it forward with me. So thank you for that. I do want to touch on, if I can, where things will be in the coming weeks, in the next couple of planning commission meetings. They're interviewing right now, and it's not likely that they'll have somebody in place probably for the April 14th meeting. I don't know, it's probably not likely, and maybe even the April 28th meeting, but we're hoping to have somebody in this position and up and running probably by May. But they haven't even completed the interviews yet, so it's hard to tell what will come of that. If there's a gap at all, Darcy and Jake and Rebecca will fill in there and do a wonderful job as they usually do. So just wanted to touch on that so you know what to expect coming up. Thank you.
Thank you. Any remaining commissioner concerns? Commissioner Cahill and Vice Chair.
I'd just like to thank Dave for all of his service. He's been an absolute gentleman, a great person to deal with, as irritating as I probably was at times. I really enjoyed it, Dave, and I wish you the best.
All right, I want to see that haircut, though.
What about you?
Vice Chair Boyle.
Well, I'm going to miss working with you, David. You've been a real pleasure. Always helpful, always able to get information when we need it, and always ready to admit if you need to find more information to answer our questions. And that's been very helpful to me. I wish you the best in your continuing new endeavors. And as Dan said, hopefully our paths will cross again.
So too.
Commissioner Williams.
I just want to thank you for all your hard work and dedication and all the time we spent together on the Shaping the Avenue Committee, where I learned a lot just listening to your guidance as we went through that process, and your help was really invaluable. And I'm sure you're on to a great adventure, and I'll see you in the farm.
Yeah, sounds
all
good.
The best.
Yeah, we'll see you there.
There are no more remaining concerns. Then a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved. Cahill.
Thank you, Commissioner Cahill. Second.
Wolf, second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Cahill and seconded by Commissioner Wolf to adjourn our meeting. There is no discussion. Well, let's have a voice vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? That motion carries. We are adjourned at, I'm going to call it 10 o'clock.
Sure enough.
Thank you all. Thank you for your good work, and we will see you in a couple weeks. Take care. Stay safe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, Dave.
Bye, Dave.
Talk, David.
Bye, David.
Bye.
Best of luck to you.
Bye.